Hello and welcome to my channel. I am C.A. Baker, a fantasy and sci-fi writer, professor, and editor. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about the tips and tricks that have helped me with world building. To me, there are two things to keep in mind with world building. One is necessity and the other is balance. Necessity is keeping in mind what you need to know in order to write your story. It's not tons and tons of details, but it's what you need to know to write that next scene, to write the rest of the story, to make this world feel real to your readers. And it's surprisingly less than most authors realize. And if they do realize this, it can be still pretty easy to get wrapped up in all of the detail that you can go into, especially with role models like Tolkien, whose world is just so vast. There's so many details and histories. He even made up a whole language, but he was a linguist, so that was kind of his deal. So that brings me to balance. You need just enough detail so that your world seems real to your reader, and that they will have enough details that it will move the plot along, and they have all the pertinent details, the ones that are important. The ones that are in the background, they can leave to the imagination if they want to, and most of the time it's good to do so. If you bog down a draft with too many details about the world and not enough forward motion, not enough action, not enough dialogue, and the other things that make the story worth reading to your readers, then it's just going to bog you down. It's going to slow the pace. So give the details where needed. Let the reader's imagination do some work for the rest of it. So one of the things I do with my own world building is I start with a general idea and begin asking questions about that idea and questions about anything else that comes up until I feel like I have enough to start writing. This is just for the first draft, so it doesn't have to be perfect at this stage. But I do want enough that I can begin writing, and then I'll start writing, and as I go, I will make notes and invent things that are needed for the world to continue, for my characters to have interactions. If I need a name for a place that comes up, I will make it up then. If I need another name for a ceremony or something that the characters do, I'll make it up then. So some of it's on the fly, but I will have a base to start off with. So finding the balance between how much do you need to know before you write, and that may be different for each writer, but for me it's about halfway to a full built world. And then I can start writing, and then I'll just find the details, names and terms as I go, invent characters as I go, and of course all of this will get touched up in the second draft, so there's no need to worry too much about it at this point, because you really just need to get the story down. You need to get all of your events down, all of your character interaction, the conflict, the important things. Then you can fill in with details that you feel are needed. That's where you can really add more details in places where you don't feel like the scene is really coming alive, that the world stops feeling as real in certain scenes, and you can doctor that up in the second draft. So once I do start writing, what I'm really focusing on at first, even before the first draft, is going to be my beats, my outline. And so this is where my outline can actually help me world build. So some people like to dive right into the first draft at this stage if you're pantsing, but I've kind of moved away from pantsing to doing kind of half and half, and moving more and more to getting used to plotting more. But this outline really helps me to flesh out the world in the way that I need it to. It doesn't give me any extraneous details that are going to bog me down too badly. It doesn't allow me to go wandering off down a rabbit hole, which I can, but it allows me to find the details that are going to move my story forward. I can fill in all the little things, you know, later if I want to, if I feel like it, and maybe some of those details will get shown in later books, but not all of them are needed for this one, and that's the important thing to remember. So using this method means that sometimes when I go to edit or do the second draft, I'm not having to cut a whole lot of extra stuff. And while overwriting has its perks, sometimes overwriting with just world building detail that doesn't move the story forward can also confuse you as to where you're really wanting this story to go. So not having some of that in the first place is good. I'd rather have extra dialogue or extra character action or extra something else that I have to cut and tweak rather than just a paragraph of world description or something like that. So another big thing is realizing at this stage that the work is cyclical. Linear processes in writing are mostly a myth. Most artistic processes are cyclical, meaning you go forward, but then sometimes you circle back. And where you circle back at can be all the way to the beginning, start completely over, or somewhere in that middle space that you've already covered, and you can circle back as many times as needed. So when you're outlining, you can go back and doctor up your preliminary ideas. When you're writing your first draft, you can doctor up your outline, go back and forth. It doesn't have to be a straight line. You don't have to do it linearly and trap yourself into that box. And knowing that it's cyclical can actually be very, very freeing. So I hope these tips have been helpful. If you'd like me to cover anything else along these lines with world building, I will do another video on character building. But if you'd like me to go more in depth on any of this, please leave a comment below and go ahead and subscribe, like if you liked, and ring the bell to be notified for when I have other videos. So everybody, happy writing, happy reading, and I'll see you in the next video.